Take two. I didn't think I was going to talk today, but there's a few things I need to clear up. Also, I want to tell you a little story. I'll tell you the story first. Sometimes I get coffee at a particular coffee shop when I go to a particular shelter. And there is a couple that may be my age, maybe a couple years older, and they have this dog. And a couple months ago, I gave the dog a treat, had the dog sit, and then I saw the dog maybe 3 times since. Today when I walked up, the older couple laughed and they said, "We knew you were here because the dog told us like 5 minutes ago that somebody that they liked was here." I walked up, the dog instantly knew who I was, started wagging his tail, was performing, sitting, gave me down, gave me paw. I went in, got my coffee, came out, same thing. Anyway, people who don't think animals are sentient beings, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? They're so amazing. Okay, clarifications on yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Those beds through shelterbeds.org are $10 cheaper than the beds that you can get, that we've discovered you can get on Amazon. They're Kuranda beds. They're the industry standards. I don't have any loyalty towards Kuranda other than I've dealt with them many times. They tend to be the most durable that I have found. If you find something more durable, let me know, and I will tell shelter organizations. The link to the Amazon thing that I posted and mentioned is not for beds, but it's for replacement canvases to fix those beds. So those beds have replacement parts that you can get, and the canvases are the part of the bed that breaks the most, rips the most. The dogs sometimes get up on the bed and dig at the canvas out of frustration. Also, if you go to buy a full bed on Amazon for a shelter, there's all different kinds of beds, brands, but Kuranda beds, there are different types. And there are beds that are much cheaper or significantly cheaper that are made of PVC, which may be great in a home, but PVC, it just functions as a bone or a chew toy in the kennels when there's nothing else for that dog to do for days. So they're able to sort of gnaw on them, and it's not healthy at all. So one of my missions when I do these fund drives is to replace any PVC beds with aluminum beds. It's not that they're completely unbreakable. There are dogs that can break through anything, chew through anything. Seriously. But they're much more durable than the PVC. So please don't go to whatever site and send PVC framed beds to a shelter. Yes, they will use them, but they'll break and the dogs will chew on those things and possibly ingest parts of PVC. If you ever walk around a dog shelter that is in need of beds, you will see PVC beds that are broken, charred, gnawed, scratched, whereas the aluminum, they may be scratched, but I have yet to see a dog. I've seen them destroy a bed, but not eat a bed, not eat an aluminum bed. Not yet, anyway. Boy, there was something else. Oh, the signs at Downey. I talked about this briefly, and I talked about it at the county has started, and this is great. The county has started a support group for volunteers. Actually started 3 things, and I talked about some of this, but there's a group called Shelter Haven that meets once a month, and it's run by 2 women that are fabulous. I shared about Downey on that group, and I'm not supposed to talk about the group outside of the group, what other people say, but I can talk about what I said. And I mentioned how hard it was to see those signs at Downey. And the sign that was on the outside of the kennel that said, there's another dog on the other side of the guillotine door. And I was asked to explain what that means to a bunch of shelter volunteers. So I'm going to explain to you all in case you don't know, because sometimes we take it for granted that everyone knows what we're talking about. So a kennel a lot of times has 2 sides, right? They have an A side, an outside, or a B side of inside. And whether or not they're inside or outside doesn't matter. But the inside tends to have where the water bowl is, where their cot is, their bed is, and where they get fed. And then there's a door, usually it's a guillotine door, not always, but usually, that separates that from the outside, which is typically a little bit larger, and that's where they hope that the animal relieves themselves. And sometimes that section gets sun, and sometimes it doesn't. But the door is important because when a shelter employee goes to clean it, they want to separate the dog to the opposite side so they don't stress the dog out with water, cleaning supplies. They can theoretically, like Baldwin Park sanitizes their kennels every day, at least once. So let's say at Baldwin Park, when the dog goes onto the inside, they close the guillotine, they clean the outside with sanitizer. You don't want the dog walking in that. They let it sit for a while, then they rinse it down, then they let it dry, and then they let the dog back out. They do the same thing on the cubby side or the inside. Make sense? So, I'm trying to avoid that make sense thing, but I do what I do. That sign basically said, there's a dog on this side and there's a dog on that side of the guillotine door. So don't raise that guillotine door because these dogs don't know each other. Now, people make these things so simple because they don't realize the complexity of some of this stuff. Nobody wants this. Nobody. It makes cleaning harder. It makes feeding harder. It's harder on the animals because they have nowhere to go. They're in half the space. There's very little room between the cot, the water, and the food bowl for them to actually step on the floor. But as hard as that is to see, the alternative is either they get rescued, adopted, euthanized. That's it. That's it, folks. That's it. And if you're not coming to foster them, you're not coming to rescue them, you're not coming to adopt them, then they're going to have to be euthanized because they can't live it like that for a long time. Because you don't want them to live like that. I don't want them to live like that. The employees don't want them to live like that. And I'm speaking as an individual in my own individual capacity. I hope that's established by now. And what happened, at least when I was there, that they had to close an entire building to redo something about it. And so they lost 30 kennels temporarily. And if you're already full, where do you put those 30 dogs? So they're trying their best not to have to euthanize. Because at another shelter, they might have just been like, well, 30 dogs have to go. That's the way it is. We lost 30 kennels. But it was so complicated, that sign, because it meant to me that they're really trying not to just go to that ultimate decision. But at some point, they're going to have to. So that's why I was asked to go down there, in part to help them out, because they needed exposure. And there's some amazing animals at all these shelters, and I want all the dogs to get out at all the shelters. But those signs, man. We can put gates on our heart, right? This came up last night as well. And some of us lock those gates when we go into shelters because we can't let everything get in. We can open it up for this or that or whatever. But man, that sign was like punching at my heart, breaking through that gate. Because I saw so much in that one little sign. And that sign was on several kennels. I saw the obvious, the dog in the small kennel. Well, they have to eat, poop, defecate, urinate. I know that they're not getting out for walks a lot. I know. And so they're living there. That's horrible. But I also saw the other side, that someone in the staff is trying so hard not to have to euthanize because they don't want to do it, right? And so they're just trying to buy time in order to either open that building back up if they can, which may be beyond their control. I don't know. I don't know the whole situation. Or till a rescue comes, or a networker comes and showcases the dogs, and maybe someone from the public goes and adopts a dog. Or maybe you have a couple weeks, and maybe they'll allow you to foster until the building's back up. I don't know. Obviously, that's not a permanent solution. I don't know what the answer is, but that sign meant so much. So I hope I clarified all of that stuff. The cheaper beds that I posted about on Amazon, about $30, are just replacement canvases. The cheaper beds that you find on Amazon or other sites, if they're different brands, I have never found them to be as durable, but if you do find one that's more durable than Kuranda and cheaper, let me know. Kuranda is great because you can replace the parts as they break. Again, I have no loyalty to them. They don't pay me anything. Well, they did offer to make me a pro, and so I would get a commission on any beds that you all bought for yourselves, but I haven't taken that up. I don't want to do that, really. I mean, maybe I should think that way, but anyway. But if you buy a full Kuranda bed elsewhere than the shelter.org thing, it's about $10 more for the same bed if you purchase it on another site. But please make sure it's all aluminum and make sure the sizes are right, because the kennels are only so big. So if you buy one that's too big, it's useless. If you buy one that's too small, it's semi-useless, because they don't have a stack of beds and then put a dog in a kennel and then match the bed up with the dog in the kennel. It's just that kennel is where the bed is, and when they get a dog, they just put it in whatever kennel's open. And very few times people adjust beds for the size of the dogs. Sometimes, but very few times. Enjoy your morning. Do something special. I hope you enjoy these things. Again, thanks for the coffee. This was one of my favorite ones, this chain. This one I made sure has mostly decaf. Yeah, be safe, be happy. I'll post more dogs today. I'm meeting more dogs today.